Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe is rebranded in his new Samoan gimmick. He's got this new costume. It is not flattering. At some point, he has that Willy tattoo face paint thing as well. What is it about Samoa Joe that TNA could look a gift horse in the mouth? I mean, for the Patreon watchers, we watched Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe. It's the most watched pay-per-view, the most purchased pay-per-view in TNA's history. And the reason is they kept it simple. They made them both badasses. How can you not make them both badasses? But it's like TNA, after a while, seemed to go out of their way to devalue Samoa Joe to the point that he's tailor-made main event, material that they seem to hold down. And I never understood it. What say you on that whole thing?
Well, we just talked about the Dr. Stevie character and how they kind of destroyed that. Well, you didn't destroy the Samoa Joe character. You created a whole new crappy one that he didn't even need in the first place, right? Being Samoa Joe was enough. It was enough in ROH. It was enough in TNA, especially in the Kurt Angle phase of it. And also with AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels in that three-way match. We'll do that on Patreon as well. WWE, to a degree, got Samoa Joe right when they let him be Samoa Joe. I don't get it.
Is this writer interference? This is almost like sometimes writers or bookers feel like they have to justify their paycheck and come up with, stuff that isn't required. It's like no gimmicks needed, like Chris Candido kind of thing.
This is reinventing the wheel. This is the ultimate reinventing the wheel that doesn't need to be reinvented. You just need to tell the guy the finish, give him a promo, give him the bullet points, and let him be what he is. Because you know what you could have got? Even after that loss to Kurt Angle with the tap out at the end, Joe was just as over somehow, the way I looked at it. All you had to do was let him go. But you're right. Creative or the company or management or even Dixie think that, hey, if I put my spin on it, I can take credit for it. And then Joe is a superstar. And somehow they translated that Mike Tyson face tattoo into this. That's my only thing I can think of.
They were doing fire spinning and stuff like that, made him super. Here's the thing. I don't know if this is how I'm remembering it differently. Do you remember when Umaga was in WWE and everyone said the same thing? Rip off of Samoa Joe. They've seen how well Samoa Joe's doing in TNA. They want their own version. And then some reason that flipped round and then Samoa Joe started going into the Samoan culture and whatever and then started imitating Umaga a bit more. Am I misreading that or...
Yeah, he had a knife in his mouth or something, right?
Yeah.
Well, I looked at it this way. The boys joked about it saying that WWE had the full budget for face paint and TNA only had about 20% budget to paint the face. That's what it looks like, right? You couldn't afford to paint the guy's whole face. It was so dumb. But this proves that WWE can shift that and flip it around and make it look like they were original because they did it right.
With this being said, I want to get your opinion on this, it just felt, and this is my opinion, Dixie Carter at no point, and I've spoke to guys from TNA throughout, TNA Originals, and I always get the same impression, Dixie couldn't have given a crap less about the homegrown TNA stars. She wanted the WWE imports, regardless of whether they wanted to be there or not. And Dutch says the same thing. He could tell the people who want to be there, and the people from WWE who always had an eye on going back. And to Dixie, it seemed to make no difference. It's like, well, they've got cachet, they've got a name from WWE, therefore they are far more valuable than an AJ Styles or a Samoa Joe or Christopher Daniels or whoever you want, or Motor City Machine Guns or whoever you want to say. And that was it's like WCW. It was the same as WCW for my taste. I mean, did you get that same impression? Because she would pay the WWE and ex-WCW guys great. She would pay the homegrown talent. Yeah, nothing.
I said almost all the WWE guys.
But yeah.
So didn't give a heck about me. Yeah, this is, if you want to criticize Tony Khan for getting new toys, Dixie Carter was the original one to get these new toys from WWE. That's why Randy Orton called Tony Khan Jacksonville Dixie one time, because Dixie Carter collected her action figures from WWE. She could go to her dinner parties, this is my assumption or speculation, and say, look who I got. Look at here, like the Vince McMahon belt squad. Hey, pal, look at this. But Yeah, she was a mark. She was a money mark. Absolutely. And they, for every bit that the guys would talk and try to pump up, say, a male promoter in a way, they would compliment her and make her, they would not wine and dine her, but I can't think of another term. They would just appeal to her in such a way to boost her ego up, even saying, you look great today. What are you doing in the makeup chair, Dixie? You don't need makeup. You know what I mean? And that translated into six-figure incomes.
I'd say, whoa, Dixie Carter, why are you getting out of that makeup chair? You're not done yet.
Well, see, that's why you're doing this show and you're never going to be in the business.
Yeah.
You're my estimation of a Sour Patch Kid.
With that, did anybody...
you know, by the way, did you know, to do the Dreamer, did you know? That's a new segment we'll do. Did you know? Dixie Carter had heat with all the knockouts. And she would spend hours and hours and hours in the makeup chair, whether she had an on camera or not. She would spend 4 hours in the makeup chair to sit in the front row during pay-per-views. And the girls would all be waiting.
Did she start doing that at Hardcore Justice, where she was in the crowd and like there was every shot in between every match was on Dixie Carter, and it just seemed like she just wanted a "Thank you, Dixie" chant throughout?
Yeah, I don't know if that was the first time, but that was the most notable time that she was in the front row. And yeah, that's all I can say. They kept shooting to her. And you know, the cameraman and the production people are the same way. We got to make her happy. We'll get her on camera. Remember, famously, also, I think Bubba or somebody had said, you should be on TV and you should go through a table and they try to pump her up and put her on TV.
Did anybody in TNA from when you were there have any foresight whatsoever as far as building stars for the future? It's because I ask this because they were building some stars just fine, even in the early days with all its faults. I mean, TNA always had a ton of faults, but they were still building stars like your Samoa Joe's, AJ Styles, and whatnot. And then
the
it just
entire
seemed
X division too. Let's not forget about that. The knockouts in the X division. What stood out about TNA?
Here's the other thing: why was Samoa Joe an X division champion at one point? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Why?
That was because he could work the style. Because he could work great with AJ and Christopher Daniels. Remember that?
It's 300 pounds.
I know, but I think the X division, in a way, they kind of got away from that. The X division had no limits. It wasn't a cruiserweight title. So a lot of times they would put guys in there, especially Joe was the first one, but they would do that. And think about it. AJ also was NWA World Champion. He was TNA World Champion, but he was also a staple of the X division. It's tricky. I'm not saying they did it completely right, but the concept and the theory of it was really sound. It's just I always thought the X division should have been the Intercontinental title type thing. If you carry that X division title and you really draw and you really do great work, you move up to the world title.
I always thought that a demotion for Samoa Joe, because it's always been, whether official or not, a cruiserweight belt, or mostly a cruiserweight belt in my mind, and I think everybody's mind. I always found that a demotion for Samoa Joe. He held it several times, but in 2009 he went back to the X division again. It's like in 2006 you were wrestling Kurt Angle. You were on his level.
Do you want to know why?
Go on.
Because creative had nothing for him, so they just went to the easiest thing right there and put him back in the X division. Yeah, it probably hurt him, but it keeps him relevant, and we don't have to do too much, and we just let him go out there and do the X division.
I think that's why I never liked the Main Event Mafia, with, you know, your Kurtz and your Kevin. Apart from the fact that, like, it was like the Millionaires Club in WCW, which I always thought was one of the absolute worst storylines of all time, and I won't get into why. I'll explain at some point in the future, I'm sure. But it made no sense for all these guys to be together, other than the fact that they were the rich guys that Dixie were overpaying. But then they just completely saturate the main event scene, and then the guys that you built up over the years, like Samoa Joe, whoops, there you go, back into the cruiserweight division.
Yeah,
somehow.
You know what's funny about those gimmicks too? They're so tone deaf with no self-awareness. Because back then, I don't know about now because of the prices, back then, it was very much a working class audience, very much middle class, very much people that save their money to go to the show. They're not going to sit there and look and go, oh my God, I'm such a fan of that millionaire. Oh my God, I can't wait to see how they spend their money. Whatever.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
I'm trying to think Booker T,
The X
Kevin
Division
Nash,
was like the 10,000 Air Club because those guys were severely underpaid.
Why was Sting part of it?
Because they
the
were
main event
friends.
mafia never made any sense to me.
Because they were
all,
friends.
ever.
They were a bunch of rich friends that got together and said, yeah. And how are you going to beat that group? How's anybody going to beat that group?
But here's the other thing. It was a total joke because their theme song was like the Godfather rip-off zither music as well. So it's like you couldn't take it seriously. And then
I think the
great.
Sting thing wasn't a Sting thing like, I'm a babyface, I don't agree with you guys, but I'm rich too, so we're a team.
Maybe Tony Gurria put them all together.
Hey,
you're a millionaire.
Hey,
you're a
I
millionaire.
looked at you're all with Morgan Stanley. You're a team.
Man, anyway.
Big shout out to my cousin, Morgan Stanley.
Right then, you discussed Samoa Joe on the Old Analysis channel, specifically the Pepsi Plunge spot at AEW All in Wembley 1 that I was at, in fact. I was at the bar when that happened because I didn't realise they were doing Samoa Joe and CM Punk first, which I found really annoying, and then I just turned up for the end of it. Did you ever work Samoa Joe? Is actually what I should be asking first.
No, I always wanted to work him, but I never got an opportunity to work him.
Okay, I guess someone who knew him a little bit, never worked with him. How would you evaluate his wrestling competency and working style, and a main event working style specifically as well?
Well, I think what made Joe stand out to be able to do, and that's why I guess it was also a double-edged sword in a way, or a double-edged knife in your mouth, if you want to use that term. But Joe was a big guy, but he could wrestle with the light ROH guys. He had the same style, but then you bring in a big guy like Kobashi or other people from Japan, he could wrestle that style, but still incorporate high flying, enziguris, stuff off the top, running. He was the one also to do that power slam, much like Randy Orton. I think he was the first one to do it before Goldust and Randy Orton, remember? Just that that quick rotation power slam. So Joe was an outlier. Joe was probably one of the most special talents from ROH, and then, of course, that 18 months in TNA when he was undefeated. He was special, different. He wasn't a bodybuilder, but he could move faster than the guys that were bodybuilders or even the guys that were just skinny, light X Division guys. He was more, I think, and I don't think it's people might think it's out of sorts or like too extreme, pun intended to say this. Joe was, in that era or those eras, a generational talent. Absolutely special. And TNA managed to paint his face up and put a knife in his mouth.
He was kind of like a pre-Keith Lee, but like better in every way, I think.
You know, he reminds me of, and it's just because of the body styles and what they could do, and even more special and talented Adrian Adonis. Adrian Adonis could do some impressive stuff at like 300, and the body types are not totally similar, but I'm just talking about a guy so big, you don't expect him to jump up standing enziguri, like without any help, without you like holding the left leg for the right. He would just do it. Like my favorite spot Joe would do would be charging in for the elbow, boom. The other favorite one was it's called the nope, where you just walk away. To me, that's like, Joe just has such an edge to him, but can work. And if you know Joe as a person, at least back then, also a really friendly, disarming guy, an easy guy to get to know. So I'm not like his character, but he would never expose that too much back then. You wouldn't know about it. I was a little scared of Joe. I was like, dude, I don't know if I can hang with this guy in the ring. Then he starts talking about video games. I'm like, oh, you're lulling me into a false sense of security. I know you're a killer. Stop it.
What was his best game?
Well, we all played Madden, but he would play a lot of RPG games, like where you put dozens upon dozens of hours into that.
To wrap this up, I guess, I mean, decent promo as well, tons of credibility. But the thing is, he didn't have as much credibility as someone like Brock Lesnar, and it always seemed that the first thing that WWE would do when they got him out of NXT, shove him against Brock Lesnar, make sure he loses at Great Balls of Fire, the world's greatest pay-per-view name kind of thing. Man, even in WWE, I thought World Championship material. And he has been an AEW World Champion. But I just think, man, over 20 years, people have scratched the surface with Samoa Joe. Still, he could be more.
I'll tell you what, I would have paid money to see Joe versus Brock in a series of matches before Brock versus Goldberg. Those are opposite ends of the spectrum. Joe and Brock could have had a hell of an angle. Joe and Brock could have had a storyline. Joe should have been world champion, 100%. The AEW world champion thing didn't really, it was like the bloom was off the rose, and it wasn't Joe's fault for that. But when he came in, him and Brock, him and Roman, him and other people, I wanted to see him work people like Taker, Triple H, all that stuff. He had a bunch of matches and storylines in him that they never pulled the trigger on.
Dude, Joe was a sub to win the AEW World Championship because MJF was hurt. So basically, he just got wedged in there. He happened to be the next challenger.
He's like the understudy for the finish. That's what he is. He wasn't the first choice.
Yeah, I don't think he would have been first choice, but he just happened to be the challenger. MJF was hurt. He had to go. And then he held the belt for a short while till I think Swerve won, defeated him for it. And Joe is still wrestling for the world title against Adam Page, but Adam Page beat him clean. And to build up for a rematch, Samoa Joe then had to turn heel. So I guess there's added intrigue a little bit there, but like you've already told the people that he's not as good as Adam Page, so therefore you got to. It's like, man, seeing them two together, I'd back Samoa Joe all day long.
Is he on the retirement run right now?
I hope not, but he's been doing this over 25 years. I suspect.
No, but I thought there was a story about him saying he was going to retire in a year or something like that, or do like or hopefully I would do like the Daniel Bryan or the Bryan Danielson thing, dude. Why do you need to turn heel on Adam Page? Why can't, if it's sports-based entertainment, like Kurt and Joe? We didn't care who the heel or the babyface was. It was two badass, competent workers that I wanted to see fight. What's wrong with that?
The Samoan Submission Machine recently revealed that he'll be retiring from in-ring action once his contract with AEW is over. So, yeah, not too long. There you go. That he's got left in the ring.
Joe, if anybody, deserves an absolutely unblemished run to retirement. Joe deserves to go on another undefeated streak. So that'd be great. Bookend the opening of his TV career, which was basically TNA, right? Where he went on an 18-month undefeated streak. End his career undefeated on a streak and piss Goldberg off. How's that? Aha.
Absolutely wonderful.
You love that part, huh?
I told that you in the Patreon. I said that to you in the Patreon earlier. It's like, oh, Samoa Joe's got an 18-month winning streak. Don't let Goldberg here.
Yeah, that's where I stole it from. But I'm bookending it on the end of that. I give you credit. Stop. Subscribe to the Patreon.